Some good news, Jim Ross. Here's a quote that he said recently about his health.
Good guy.
Yeah, he's been going through the ringer for some time now, hasn't he?
Yeah.
I mean, even like from the mid 2000s in WWE, he had colon. It was actually colon cancer. I know he had like terrible colon issues and strokes and skin cancer as well. I'll give you the quote. My health has improved immensely. I got my nurse who comes by twice a week, checks my vitals, dresses my wound. Can you believe that wound, which was a result of 22 radiation treatments for skin cancer, is still being nursed over a year later? The good news is that it's healing, it's shrinking, and that's important for me. I'd like to get the bandages off and move on, but I've adjusted well. It's just the way it is. I'm not going to bitch and moan about poor me. That don't heal nothing, and nobody wants to hear that shit, so things are good.
I love that. Nobody wants to hear that shit. And that's true. Nobody else does want to hear. And I hope Jim continues to get well. Good guy. And because without Jim Ross, when he started in Mid-South, I mean, he was the voice of wrestling there. And people, when they heard him after a time, they believed him. Like they believed Lance Russell in Memphis. And they believed Jim Ross in Mid-South. When he said something like, oh my God, they would really believe that he was concerned about a guy's health or how it's going to come out or why was the guy doing this move or how deadly it is or how awful it could be. But Jim Ross, I'm glad he's recovering and doing better. But he was the voice of Mid-South Wrestling, not only when I got there, but for years afterwards. So when Vince picked him up, or was he in WCW first?
He was, yeah. I was actually going to ask, do you remember him and Tony Schiavone falling out? Because apparently they hate each other for years.
Well, those announcers, I'm sure that Schiavone didn't go there to be the backup announcer. Mm. And Jim didn't go there to be the backup announcer.
Well, Tony had the tenure as well, and then when the UWF was bought, Jim Ross goes over, and then he's sort of positioned as the number one announcer, which I can imagine would stick in the craw, as you might say over there.
Yeah, Tony was the voice of Mid-Atlantic. Him and another guy, Bob. What was his name? Bob Calder. How can you remember all these names and you met them like 40 years later than I did?
I've never even met Bob. I've never even met Bob. Never spoke to him.
You know his voice, though, right?
Oh God, yeah. Which of the Crockett was it? David Crockett. Look at him! Look at him! Look at him, Tony.
Oh yeah. But and Bob, great announcer.
Still alive as well. I think he's like 90 now, isn't he?
No, he's 91. I read. Yeah, and good guy. And I mean, I could say something out of the line with Bob, but he wouldn't go on and on with me. He would say, oh, Dutch, please, something like that. That's all he'd say. But now in Jim Ross's line, he would just stay on you about it. I want you to listen, if you got a chance, to Paul Heyman and Jim Ross. They didn't get along. Back behind that camera. You could tell when Jim, his temper would run a little short with Paul. Paul didn't give a crap, but you could tell that, he was, and Paul, you could never tell what Paul was up to. I think Paul was actually going after Jim's job for a while. But Paul was very good on play-by-play. He's good, but play-by-play as a heel, you're trying to get yourself and the talent over. But a play-by-play as a straight up, commentator, you got to get the whole show over. So, but Paul, him and Jim, they did have some words spoken in anger or turmoil out there at times.
Jim Ross, when asked about returning to AEW television, I'm going to be at the next AEW pay-per-view. It's going to be emanating from Orlando later this month. I think that'll be my next assignment. Tony Khan, I imagine, been putting me in the two main events, the last two matches of the pay-per-view, so hopefully that'll continue. I figure it will. I haven't heard anything differently, but it's a nice trip for me. That's a car trip and no aeroplanes. I
Right.
should also say when Jim Ross generally talks, "Oh, my health is doing good," while he's chain smoking at the same time.
Well, but maybe his problems didn't stem from him smoking.
People have said, "Dutch, your health is, your health isn't as great as it once was. Why are you smoking cigars?" I think people need
Yeah.
to realize that you've never smoked a cigar in your life.
No, I've smoked a cigar,
Right.
but I haven't smoked one in probably 15 years because I can't smoke cigars. They knock me out. Some of them are very strong. I just have this as a prop.
What's the
You
flavour of
know,
that one? It's got fire on it.
let me see. Let me see. It says made in, hey, it's got Abyss's name on here. Black Abyss. That's the name of it. I don't know what that is from. And it doesn't say where it's made, really.
They
Oh, Jamaica.